Sorry about that, everybody. It's good to see so many of you here. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Vast is the robe of liberation, a formless field of benefaction. I wear the Tathagata's teaching, freeing all creations. Got to have atonement. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. All evil karma ever committed by me since of old, on account of my beginningless greed, anger, and ignorance, born of my body, mouth, and thought, now I atone for it all. Fragrance of this incense invites the awakened mind to be present with us now. The fragrance of this incense fills our room, protects and guards our minds from wrong thinking. The fragrance of this incense unites us with precepts, concentration, and insight. We offer it for all beings. Homage to the Buddha. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. I go to the Buddha for guidance. I shall become one with the Buddha. I resolve that I shall each day follow the way of life he laid down for us to walk and awaken to his supreme wisdom. I go to the Dharma for guidance. I shall become one with the Dharma. The gates of Dharma are manifold. I vow to enter them all. The goal of wisdom is ever beyond. I shall attain it. I go to the Sangha for guidance. I shall become one with the Sangha in the spirit of universal fellowship, and as a member of the Sangha, I pledge myself to strive for the enlightenment of all beings. The Metta Sutta. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove. Wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. Whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short, or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born, may all beings be at ease. Let none deceive another or despise any being in any state. Let none through anger or ill will wish harm upon another. Even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with the boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upward to the skies and downward to the depths, outward and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, sitting or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding. By not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into the world of suffering. Excuse me. May I be happy and well. May no harm come to me. May I learn compassion. May all my friends, family, and those I love be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those troubled in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those who have hurt me in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all those I have hurt in body, mind, and spirit be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all my enemies be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. May all living beings be happy and well. May no harm come to them. May they learn compassion. So this is the third Wednesday of the month. So we'll do a guided meditation tonight. Take a few deep breaths. Remember to keep your belly soft, abdominals relaxed so your diaphragm can expand and contract easily. Breath flow in and out smoothly. And after you've breathed this way a few times, just let your breath settle. Just breathing naturally. But keep your attention connected to your breath. Breathing in, know that you're breathing in. Breathing out, know that you're breathing out. And as you breathe out, just let these words anchor your attention on your breath. Wisdom, compassion, purity. Wisdom, compassion, and purity are the three virtues that we identify most closely with the Buddha. And so just to set your intention on developing wisdom, living compassionately, and letting go of those patterns of thought, belief, and so on that lead to stress and suffering. Purifying the mind of those activities that bring you back to birth and death. And then develop goodwill for yourself and others. May I be happy. May I be free from animosity. May I be free from stress and affliction. May I look after myself with ease. May all beings be happy. May all beings be free from animosity. May all beings be free from stress and affliction. May all beings look after themselves with ease. The resource that we have to work with to develop these virtues, to have our own happiness, to contribute to happiness of others, is this body. This body and mind sitting here breathing. It is imperative that we put effort into awakening while we still have this form. And just keep your attention on your breath. Breathing naturally, but attention resting solidly on the in breath and the out breath. You can count your breaths if you'd like, or note them in, out, or Buddha, which means awaken. Try not to let a single breath pass by you without noticing it. You can never breathe the same breath twice. Each breath, that's the only time you're going to breathe that breath. So be aware of that breath, be aware of this moment. This one breath. This one moment. bell will ring twice to end the meditation. I'm ordering a new chair, one that rolls instead of screeching on the terrazzo. I listened to part of one of my talks for something, and I heard that, and I said, boy, that's annoying. Surprised nobody said anything to me about it. Anyway, how's everybody? I hope you're all doing well. Seems to be. It's good to see so many of you here. So a couple of things before I start talking about the Dharma. I'll just kind of tell you a couple of things that are going on. Those of you who don't know already, we did settled on dates for a session. That's a 3 full day meditation retreat in the Zen style, the Soto Zen style at White Sands Buddhist Center. That will be September 15th through 19th. That's a Wednesday evening through Sunday morning. So it starts after dinner on Wednesday, and it's up after breakfast on Sunday. And then you're invited to come to the services. So that's one thing. So another thing is that this Friday is International Yada 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 Day. I'm actually going to give a talk about that on Insight Timer live at 4 o'clock Eastern Time, Friday afternoon. So if you're on there, I don't think those of you that I have spoken to, I think, are not, or you don't have the paid prescription. But one of these days, when I give a Dharma talk on July 23rd, I will talk about International Yada 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 Day. It's actually a made-up holiday. Oh, well, I'm glad you're back. It's not lightning here. It's not raining here yet. It's been thundering a lot for about a half hour or so, I think. But it's not. We haven't had any lightning or no rain yet. Anyway, it's an interesting idea, though. It's a made-up holiday. Somebody posted something about it on the internet, and it kind of took off. But it's fun. So I'll give a talk about that one of these days. And the other thing, on a more serious note, this Sunday, July 25th, is the beginning of Wasa. Wasa, as Pali word, means rains. It's or something like that. It's the rainy season in India, and so it's referred to as the rains or rains retreat. You'll hear about monks doing an intensive practice period for the period of Wasa, which is a 3-month period. It's like, I think it's 12 weeks, pretty much. And the significance of this is that when the Buddha was alive, it was customary for monks to find him wherever he was during the rainy season and stay at the monastery where he was and receive teachings and so on. And so they were learning a lot for that 12 weeks. So the benefit of the monks was it was an intensive practice period. The the larger benefit to society is that monks weren't out wandering around and tromping through rice fields and stuff like that, while farmers were trying to get the rice paddies planted during this period when the ground was really soaked and wet and so on. So I think that's why that, or one of the reasons why that they did this. But still to this day, in parts of the Buddhist world, especially like in Southeast Asia and Thailand and places like that, they take this period pretty seriously. And so at temples, there will be regular Dharma talks, and they tend to kind of go through the key teachings, starting from the setting the wheel of Dharma in motion, Four Noble Truths and Eightfold Path talk. They will, they'll read that sutra and they'll unpack it and so on. And the teachings on not self and the teachings on impermanence and all those kinds of key teachings. And they go forward from there. So it's an intensive teaching time. It's also an intensive practice time for a lot of people. So what a lot of people will do is they'll come to the monastery and they'll take the 8 precepts at the beginning. Now, so when you go for refuge, you take 5 precepts: to not kill, not steal, not engage in harmful sexual activity, not engage in harmful speech, not engage in intoxicants that compromise your mindfulness. Okay. The 8 precepts are taken during like holy days, if you go on a retreat and things like that. And so it's those 5, except you're generally, if you take the 8 precepts, you abstain from sexual activity altogether. You go on if you're staying in a monastery for a meditation retreat, you just don't do that. You abstain from sleeping in luxurious beds. In other words, you don't laze around. You don't get made up, dress in fine clothes and ornaments, wear perfumes, dance, sing, things like that. I can't remember exactly how that precept is worded. And you don't like listen to music and go to shows and that kind of stuff. So that's for most people. They'll do that for a short period of time, or they'll do that when they're on a retreat. There are some people who will sometimes take that whole period and follow the 8 precepts. I've done it. It's a pretty rigorous practice when you're trying to do that, when you're living in real life. It's not impossible. It's not like suffering, I don't think. Sometimes you'll hear this referred to as Buddhist Lent. It's different. The idea with Lent, and this is not my tradition, so I'm not an expert on this. I'm explaining it the way I've been told about it, or the way I've read about it and stuff. The idea with Lent is that you give something up in order that you recognize Christ's suffering. So maybe you give up smoking for that period so that you'll suffer too, or whatever. Lent's a fairly brief period compared to Vasa. And the purpose of it is not so you'll suffer. The purpose of it is so that you can work pretty directly with cravings that arise, and so that you can concentrate better. It's very interesting what happens when you do this. And so it's funny. First time I did this, I was kind of walking around one afternoon about 2 weeks in, and I go, my mind feels different. It feels like it feels when I'm on a retreat. And I think it's just because you're just not distracting yourself from so many things that you're looking, more directly at what your mind gets occupied in a lot. So anyway, I'm not telling you should do this. I'm just telling you that some people do this. And a lot of people will do it for like the weekend at the beginning of Wasa and the weekend at the end of Wasa or something like that. And that I think is kind of worth doing once in a while, or you can go on a retreat. So if you go to the session, we don't take the 8 precepts, but you pretty much you're still pretty limited in what you eat. You're not listening to music. You're not reading, watching TV. You should not be concerning yourself with inappropriate relationships with other people in a retreat. Things like that. So you really are dedicating your attention for those 3 days to training your mind. To seeing what your mind is up to and working with that. And so, and I think that's one of the reasons why about 3 days in, most people find that they have a lot more control over their mind than they thought they did. And their mind will settle down in ways that they didn't realize were possible and that kind of thing. And part of that is because just the way you're living for those 3 days. So, anyway, if you want to experiment with that, you could just take the period of Wasa or the weekend at the beginning and cut out TV, or something like that. Like I never take the full 8 precepts, but Michelle and I usually do something for that period of Wasa. We'll be more careful with our diet and we'll stop watching TV or something like that, because what it does is it gives you an opportunity to have these urges to do things that you're habituated to arise and then not do them. And that's a really interesting thing to work with in your mind. It's everybody who's ever quit an addiction, quit smoking or anything like that, they've gone through that process of seeing cravings arise and then deliberately not giving into them, craving, clinging, becoming, severing that chain of causation. Ignorance leads to suffering, but there's a 12 link chain there between those two things. And you can sever that at any point and you don't end up as suffering. So clinging arises, craving arises, so on. You just don't get to becoming. You don't get to birth. And the idea is that when we practice that in meditation, when we practice that in day-to-day mindfulness, if we practice that by following the precepts and so on, that we gradually over time, we sever more and more of those links between ignorance and suffering. And ultimately, we can free ourselves. We can awaken. So anyway, that's part of what I wanted to tell you about tonight. So the other part is I just want to share with you something that came up in a reading. I think I've probably read from this book before, On Zen Practice. It's by Taizan Maizumi Roshi and Bernie Glassman Roshi. They're both, those of you who've met Jim ordained me. Jim got Dharma transmission from a guy who got Dharma transmission from Bernie Glassman Roshi, who got Dharma transmission from Taizan Maizumi Roshi. So that's the relationship there. So you're related to him by Dharma. So he's talking about this writing from Dogen Zenji, Zen Master Dogen, who's the founder of Soto Zen in Japan. And Dogen says, since you have already attained the functioning essence of a human body, do not pass your days in vain. When one takes care of the essential function of the way of the Buddha, who can carelessly enjoy the spark from a flint? Verily, form and substance are like the dew on the grass, and the fortunes of life are like the lightning flash. In an instant they are emptied, in a moment they are lost. So Let me unpack that. And then there's another paragraph I'm going to read you, and we'll talk about that one too. I. So it says, since you have already attained the functioning essence of a human body. Now, how did you attain the functioning essence of a human body? So you come from somewhere, right? We didn't just pop into existence at this moment. Everything, all compounded things, including human beings, arise due to causes and conditions. Yes? And in large part, the causes and conditions that bring us into existence are karma of one form or another. And the idea is that it's our karma that brought us into this form, at this place, in this time. So we have attained, through at least some positive karma, a human form. And the significance of that is that it's very rare and very special to be born human. I'll talk more about that in a minute when I read Maizumi's comments on this. But it says, so do not pass your days in vain. It's important that you've been born a human being. Not everybody can say that. Not every being is a human being. And you only get this life. So do not pass your days in vain. When one takes care of the essential function of the way of the Buddha, who can carelessly enjoy the spark from a flint? Who can carelessly enjoy the spark from a flint? A spark from a flint is a very short-lived thing. Very short-lived thing. If you've ever done it, you strike a rock against another rock or against a piece of steel. Strike a piece of steel against a piece of rock, and you get a spark. And it's gone in an instant. It's gone almost before you know it's there. And that's, in a greater sense, so are our lives. We experience that when we meditate on our breath, and we suddenly realize, oh, that breath is gone. That's why in the guided meditation, I told you, you can't breathe the same breath twice. Be careful about this one. Breathe this one breath, and then the next one breath. So that's really working with this idea that this life is passing, and everything passes in a moment, and moments are gone in a hurry, like the sparks from a flint. So, verily, form and substance are like the dew on the grass. We don't have this very long. And the fortunes of life like a lightning flash. In an instant, they are emptied. In other words, in an instant, they have no more substance. In a moment, they are lost. And then Maizumi says, how precious and how rare it is to be born a human. To be human is truly precious. As humans, we are able to be Tathagatas. So what's a Tathagata? I'm going to give a Dharma talk about that very soon, probably the first Sunday in August, because the question was asked of me twice now, what's a Tathagata? and it's, the answer is one who comes from suchness or one who comes from thusness, so the one thus come, which doesn't really give you an answer, doesn't really tell you. So I'm going to have to unpack that a whole lot. And it's not something I can answer in 2 minutes in a Q&A time. But what it means is we can become Buddhas. We can become Buddhas. That's what he's saying. That's Tathagata is a name for another word for the Buddha. Why is it important, this whole human form thing? So human beings are in a unique position in that we have consciousness. And so I'm going to veer off into Western philosophy a little bit. There's one of my favorite philosophers was one of the existentialists. I think it was Sartre that said this, who said, Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. And I say, I know that I think, therefore I am. In other words, therefore I am human. Human beings know that we use our minds. We can be aware of what our minds do, and we can work with that. We can develop skills with that. dogs and cats I love my dogs, but they don't know that they don't have consciousness of their consciousness. And you need that in order to wake up. So animals, ghosts and hell beings are not in a position to do good karma. So they really can't do anything to advance where they are. They can't move toward enlightenment from where they are. We can go into the whole ghost thing another time, but basically, if you're a hell being, if you're a ghost, if you're an animal, you cannot awaken. You might say, well, what about the devas? What about devas and asuras, the deities, the Brahmins? Can they awaken? And the traditional view of this is no, they can't. An exception being people who are born in Pure Lands, because that's kind of a different thing. They're born as a result of a certain amount of karma in a place that's created in the mind of a Buddha specifically for awakening. But we'll forget about that for a minute, because that's another aspect of Buddhism. But devas and asuras and brahmas and those kinds of gods don't suffer. Life is too easy. If life's too easy, why do you want to get out of it? Why do you not want to come back to it? So humans are in this unique position of being born with consciousness, being aware that awakening is possible. If you're born in a place where the Dharma is available, aware that awakening is possible, being in a position to do good things so that you can get good results, so you can move toward awakening, and you experience enough suffering that you want to wake up. And that's very rare. So the Buddha once gave a discourse where he talked about how rare it was to be a human being. And he said, imagine the ocean. Imagine a vast, vast ocean, biggest ocean you can imagine. And on that ocean, there's a hoop about this big around floating on the waves. And there's a sea turtle, a blind sea turtle, just swimming around out there in the ocean. And he just happens to surface with his head through that hoop. Think about how rare that is. To be born a human is more rare than that. That's how good your chances were to be right here, right now, in this body with this mind. That's what the idea is. So Dogen is saying how precious and how rare it is to be born a human. To be human is truly precious. As humans, we can be Tathagatas. Times it. Okay. And then he says the concluding passage of the Diamond Sutra says all composite things are like a dream, a fantasy, a bubble, and a shadow. Like a dewdrop and a flash of lightning, they are thus to be regarded. So all compounded things, everything that is made up of other things, which includes us, which includes, my office here, which includes the rainstorm, everything is ephemeral. Is ephemeral and lacks real substance, is empty of inherent selfness of anything that's substantial and eternal and permanent, except the unconditioned, the Tathagata, is eternal. Anyway, in a way, life is long, between 70 and 100 years. So sitting here today, to think of living 100 years, that's a long time. I think back to when I was born and the way things were. And it seems like, 65 years ago was a very long time when you think about how much things have changed. And sometimes I think, I'm getting old. But then I'm thinking, well, I might have another 35 years. You do a lot in 35 years. So between 70 and 100 years, kind of average, that seems like a real long time. But, he says, when we compare it to infinite time, it's very short. The time we can put into our practice is also very limited. He's, this is Maizumi speaking, he's recognizing that we have lives to live, that we have things that we have to do. And so the time we have for practice is limited. So the time we have right now is precious time. Let us reflect upon ourselves how we can have a stronger, better practice together. So he's probably given that Dharma talk during a retreat, or services one morning or something like that. And he's saying, the time we have right now is precious. Okay. Let us reflect upon ourselves and how we can have stronger, better practice together. And not only make ourselves happy and content, but share such understanding, freedom, and peace with other people. And so this is, the beauty of Sangha, of practicing as a community, is that we support one another in our practice. And if you think about it, one of us might get 100 years. And we might have been smart enough to start practicing, say at age 25. Maybe we get 75 years of practice. And then when we take out all the other time we have to spend and what time we really get around to dedicating to our practice is pretty brief. But there's 8 of you on here. So including me, there's 9 of us. So we can multiply by 9 the value of the time spent practicing together, right? You can compound the effects of your practice by practicing in a community. And you're thinking, well, what good would that do me? What good does it do me that you're practicing? Well, we're supporting one another in our practice. It's like, I've used this analogy before. It's like playing music with other musicians. It's not, 2 guitar players playing songs. It's 2 guitar players creating something together, that really transcends what either of them could do on their own, or piano players, or whatever configuration of musicians you want to imagine, symphony orchestra or whatever. It compounds the effect of the practice when you practice in a community. And when we did that meditation, one of the second thing I have you do is develop your own happiness and then share it. If you practice with that enough, you start to get a sense that the difference between may I be happy and may all beings be happy is really kind of non-existent. If I'm happier, all beings are happier. If all beings are happier, I'm happier. If we consider happiness in terms of the spiritual sense, the true happiness. So anyway, I really liked that couple of paragraphs. I like that paragraph from Dogen, and I like what Maizumi had to say about it. And so I hope that that was useful to you, and that it will be something that you can practice with on your own in the future. All right? Questions, comments, concerns? All right, then. Buddha nature pervades the whole universe, existing right here now. In offering flowers, candles, and incense, hearing the Dharma, and training the mind, great merit is attained. We dedicate this merit to the great Master Shakyamuni Buddha, the all-pervading and everlasting 3 treasures, to the 16 guardians and all protectors of the Dharma and their relations throughout space and time, to all ancestors of this Sangha and all beings in the Dharma world. May penetrating light dispel the darkness of ignorance. Let all karma be resolved and the mind flower bloom in eternal spring. May the Dharma body maintain strength and health, and years of life be lengthened for all teachers of this Sangha. May their vows be fully realized, and may they live in perfect peace with Buddha Dharma. We pray for those suffering from violence and those who grieve, for those living in oppression, for all who are imprisoned, and for all refugees from violence, hunger, and catastrophes. We pray for the health and well-being of those suffering from diseases of body, mind, or spirit, and those working toward the healing of those afflictions. May they be serene through all their troubles, and may we realize the enlightened way together. Sabe sata sadahantu avera sukajivino katang punya phalang maihang sabe bagi bhavantu te. May all beings always live happily, free from animosity. May all share in the blessings that spring from the good we have done. So thank you for being here. See you tomorrow night, perhaps, on Zoom. I will not be at White Sands this Sunday. I will be speaking to the Ormond Beach Unitarian Universalist congregation by way of Zoom. So if you're interested in seeing what goes on in a virtual Unitarian Universalist service, you can go to their website, just look for Ormond UU, and you'll find it. And it tells you details on how to join that service. Question tomorrow? What about tomorrow? And take your time. I'll wait. And you're welcome, Dolores. D. Well, while Jeff's typing his question. I've spoken at that UU church long time ago, just once, I think, and physically at the church. And I haven't, I don't think I've attended any virtual church services. Some Buddhist services virtually, but no Unitarian Universalist church services. So it'll be interesting for me too. Okay. Not sure what happened to Jeff, if he got kicked off. But yeah. So tomorrow we will continue our conversation about the second of the Pure Land Sutras. So if you've already read the second of the sutras, the one on the contemplation, then you don't need to read anything else. And otherwise, we'll talk about it then. So, all right. Thank you for, oh, there it is. Maybe. There's some theories about that, but I don't really think so. It's been suggested, but I really think that their variety of consciousness is different than ours. Also, dolphins are mean. Dolphins are pretty straightforward, cruel. The way they treat other animals, other fish, and not other fish. They're not fish, but fish and things like that. It's kind of interesting if you look at that. They're very cute. I like dolphins, but they are definitely plugged into the cycle of coming and going. So, but it's possible. Anything is possible. Anyway, but the Dharma is not available to them. And if the Dharma is not available to you, if you can't understand the Dharma, you can't awaken. And that doesn't necessarily mean Buddhist Dharma only, but, the Dharma, but access to truth. But anyway, I won't argue that because I'm not an expert on dolphin psychology. But thank you for mentioning that. Anyway, have a good night. I'll see you tomorrow.